One thing to call out is, you know, we had a really close collaboration with Turn 10 on this project. We've always worked really closely with them, but on this project in particular, we're able to leverage some of the resource on their side that kind of helped us invest in certain features for our vehicles. The other thing is we've invested in our team here at Playground. So I think I'm probably right in saying this is the largest vehicle art team that we've had on a project previously.
We know that Forza Horizon 6 will arrive with 550 cars on day one, which is the largest number of cars at launch for any previous Forza Horizon game. That number will obviously only continue to grow over the next several years. After all, Forza Horizon 5 arrived with just over 500 and now sports around 900. However, moving forward from the Xbox One and Xbox One X generation of consoles has given Playground Games the opportunity to finally pull the trigger on a number of improvements to vehicles. Improvements which touch every single car.
There's work we've done across our whole suite of vehicles in carrying them forward, which both modernizes them. So for example, if you look at our headlights and taillights, we've got a new kind of refraction-based shader on them. Gives them this really authentic look of depth and feel. Also with things like where you have polycarbonate style headlights, there's a kind of rainbow refraction effect that you get through there, like an iridescence as the light casts through it. We've also reworked our materials used across the library of vehicles as well. So we've done some basic stuff like that outside of customization. Some of the coolest things I think we've done are where we've made investments that touch the entire library. So there are new vehicles that we have in the game, and those vehicles have their own unique bespoke parts which are exclusive to that car. But then I think probably the biggest areas, some of the areas we're most excited about are things like Forza Aero and window decals.
The ability to place decals on windows has been something that's been requested ever since the influential livery editor was first introduced to the Forza series in 2007's Forza Motorsport 2.
Window decals are a long requested fan feature, something that we've also wanted to do for a really long time. That requires a massive investment, and you have to go back and do work to every single car in order to support that. So we're really thrilled that we've been able to bring that to players, and that allows everything from doing huge ornate designs that span across the windows, wrap all the way around the car, to simpler stuff like having a sun strip in the windscreen, or even just smaller low-key things like having window stickers that you can go and place on there. And that's kind of a fun one as well, because we link that into the campaign. As you progress, you'll unlock little graphics you can go and proudly display in there as well.
Another noticeable improvement that touches on just about every one of the hundreds of cars in the game is Forza Horizon 6's new Forza Aero. Dedicated car builders have become increasingly critical of the one-size-fits-all approach of the all-purpose Forza Aero parts available in Forza games, but Forza Horizon 6 will feature front splitters tailored to the individual car, and modern spoilers with separate paintable elements.
We've redone the new the front end and the rear wing for Forza Aero. So the new front splitter is completely bespoke to each car. So the vehicle artists now have like handles that they can kind of mold to the body lines of the vehicle. Where before we had kind of like one piece that would just go onto the front of the car. Now each can kind of tailor itself to the design of the actual vehicle. So and it looks more natural, especially with the canards as well. Like it follows the body lines a lot better. And we have a new tow hook, which you quite like because it has the feature of being able to be paintable. So for people that like the smaller customization, it means you can kind of make the look more cohesive. Mm-hmm. And actually, you know, sort of like a red blob on the front of the car, you can actually make it look complete.
Yeah, I think just the fact that the kit, the Forza Aero pieces themselves, every single one of them has been somewhat reworked and somewhat retouched to work with the profile of that vehicle. That's the biggest uplift. There were some cars in the past where maybe it just didn't sit super well against that vehicle. So yeah, you got a performance uplift, you got a visual change, but maybe it didn't quite look as cohesive as you wanted it to. But now that's genuinely, I think it looks so much stronger aesthetically.
You brought it forward, it looks way more modern. Yeah.
The new materials on it, the supporting struts that we have, the new design for the rear wing, the kind of swan neck style wing, much more modern looking than what we had in the past. And yeah, you referenced it there, James, but I love the fact that when you've installed these parts, if you go to, you know, one of the other areas that we've made investments in terms of quality of life is with paints. So if you go to the paints area now, if you've installed some Forza Aero parts, yeah, that red tow hook, it doesn't have to stay as a red tow hook. If you spent ages working on that perfect color scheme for the body of the car, your wheels, your brake calipers, you can go in and customize that tow hook and just make sure it either fades into the background with something more neutral or it really pops and complements the rest of the scheme that you've got. And the same is true for the rear wing. You can customize the end plates, bright color complementary to the car, or again, you could, throw on one of our new carbon materials and yeah, just provide something really, really subtle there. So yeah, I think I'm really hoping, and I think we really believe that the Forza Aero work that we've done has been really, really valuable to our car roster. And like I say, it's almost all of our cars, I think we have Forza Aero pieces for, so a really big investment there.
There have also been improvements to the paint shop.
Within our advanced materials, we reworked our metallics. We've got a new like heavy metal flake material in there. We have a candy paint. And one of the nicest things, honestly, is we've removed a lot of the friction that you used to experience when you navigate through the paint. So in the past, if you wanted to choose a metallic, you would have to go into the paint shop, you'd have to tab through to advanced, you'd have to navigate down, you'd then have to click into metallics, and then you'd be kind of tuning multiple values to get the right hue. And it was a lot of clicks is probably the best way to put it. And it was kind of hidden. So there was a bit of a barrier to entry there where if you kind of knew, maybe you were more like a power user, you were experienced from the previous games, you knew how to get there. But I think for somebody who's less experienced with the games, it was kind of hard to find. So now when you go to the paints menu, you open it up, you go to the standard paints, you can just simply click the right trigger and you'll swap in between gloss, semi-gloss, matte, metallics, and then you can dive in right from there to the advanced paint menu and make those adjustments. You can also favorite paints from there, which we think should be a really powerful feature for people who use our livery editor. Those guys do incredible things. And they're working with often like hundreds of layers. So I think being able to quickly assemble a palette of favorite colors that they can go and swap between and when they're applying different graphics should be something really valuable for them as well.
On top of this, there will be over 100 new rims, the ability to choose different rims on the front and rear, and even motorcycle engine swaps for K-cars.
So we have, compared to Horizon 5, over 100 new rims that people can go and choose from. Some really great styles in there from some great OEMs. So I think people are going to really enjoy that, particularly when it comes to customizing, different rims, front and rear. Also worth noting actually is we've reworked our tyre designs, our actual tyre visual for the cars. That's been reworked. So when you look at the tread pattern, when you look at the tyre wall, that's a kind of fresh new design. And you will see that feed into the tyre wear that is another feature that we've added to the game as well. In terms of other customization, we've not talked a huge amount about the performance stuff, and we've got a really cool class of car in the game that maybe shows up in a bigger way this time around, James. So maybe
yes,
we could give an example around K-car.
Yeah, so we have a few new K-cars in the game, and one of the cool things I think we wanted to lean into is they're pretty small, so get some pretty interesting engine swaps for them. So we've got a few new motorbike engine swaps that all have some great audio, and they also rev to silly numbers. So yeah, I'm really excited for those. I think we didn't talk about K-cars and the fact that they've got their own just bespoke plates.
Yep.
So yeah, if you drive any K-cars in the game, we took a lot of focus and a lot of detail on the plates and trying to get the authenticity right. So I remember just going through it and getting all the car dimensions and making sure they're all marked up properly to have the right plates, making sure they had the yellow plates with the right number classification. So I love that level of detail.
While these boosts to car customization will no doubt result in an overall improvement in the kinds of builds players can create, Playground has been going a bit nuts with its own completely custom cars in the meantime. In Forza Horizon 6, Forza Edition cars are being injected with entirely custom fabrication you can't recreate by manually applying upgrades in the auto show. The team explains they began to experiment with this a little later in Forza Horizon 5's lifespan.
There's two examples of this. One was the Horizon Edition Dodge Viper that we added to the game, where that had a really unique carbon fiber aero kit that we added for it, and we also put a sun strip in the windscreen, so really kind of separated it from what you could get with the standard Viper. You couldn't just modify one to make it look like that. And then we pushed that even further with the Jordan-Luca collaboration, where we basically did a full resto mod on a car there. So we took the Camaro, it was widened, it had unique wheels on it, I think it had a unique tire design. The whole interior is reworked. We kind of riffed on like the design of the trainer. The body was really heavily modified, the lights were changed. It was such a cool car. Like, we had a ton of fun working on it. And we think our players really loved this thing that we'd created. And so, you know, you can consider that. And then also, if you look at shows like SEMA or Tokyo Auto Salon, or even when you consider our location of Japan and the incredible builds you see coming out of these tiny workshops dotted around the country, we're like, look, there's something to this. Like, how do we go and like move forward Forza editions for the next game? And so what we've tried to do is take as many of those elements as possible and feed those into the Forza editions that we feature in the game. And like, personally, I think these are some of our most exciting cars. So again, they're very rare. Like, you can't just go and buy these through the auto show, either through rare wheel spins, or interestingly, a few of these will be available as aftermarket cars. So as you're out exploring the world, some of these might pop up for sale as aftermarket cars on driveways, giving you a nice reason to go out and cruise and explore the world. Might have some fun discovery moments there.
The thing that makes Forza editions special this time around is how unique they are, and that goes far beyond their special glow-in-the-dark commemorative style Mount Fuji number plates.
But yeah, the thing that for me really separates them is just the level of detail we've gotten to in terms of differentiating them from a stock car modified with the parts available to you through the auto show normally. So they still have unique perks. Some of those unique perks will be tied to the new gameplay we have as well. So open world time attack, additional link skills, that kind of thing. But yeah, really, it's the level of attention we put into the visuals of those cars. Like, we've really let our vehicle artists off the leash and show what they can do. And I think that's what makes them super exciting. So James, maybe you want to talk a bit about a few of these particular vehicles?
Yeah. So I know that players have seen a lot of that Miata from the reveal. The pretty crazy one. Yeah, it's got a V10 with the turbos for headlights. I think everyone's one of the first things people saw, they were like, what is that? And then, as you can see from the front end, it's even got like the tow hook like coming out the front end, like the little tongue, which I think is quite funny. Yeah, a lot of the cool like design elements. I think the amount of detail that's gone into just the Forza editions in general, like, from what we were talking about, like we've even gone down to the point where like, how do we make some of these cars, how do these cars like actually work? So for example, in the Miata, if you look inside in the passenger footwell, like the firewall's actually kind of been expanded, and you can see where like the welds of where they've put more metal to like even fit the engine to begin with. So like we would have never gone to the kind of like those lengths previously for like some of those cars. In particular, on that car, like, yeah, I guess you can see like some details like the arches to fit like the gigantic rear like rubber that we've got underneath.
There's the roll cage. We've got working dials attached to the roll cage as well. We've ripped out the seat, so it's now a single seat with a harness, more like a race seat design style in there. And again, you mentioned details there, James. If you look around the car, we've even like reworked the bright work. So where you've got the rivets on the arches, the metal for the handles on the doors, and the fixings for the hard top. On the standard car, those things would be kind of chrome elements. They've been given a sort of brass copper look to kind of knit in with the overall look of the car. So yeah, just that level of detail, like cutting and modifying the bodywork, like exposing an engine coming up through the bonnet, twin turbochargers, they just look so different compared to what you could build through the auto show, and I think that makes them really cool.
Another cool thing about the MX-5, from literally just the point you were talking about, was the fact there is a bit more customization you can do with that Forza edition. So like, I guess the spec out of the box is this kind of drag car. It's got the drag wheels, you know, it's got drag slicks. It's got this kind of like low drag look. But you can put Forza on the front, and it's got this custom rear wing, and then you can change it, put slicks on it, and then yeah, you can turn it into like basically like a little time attack car. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that we haven't done before, where you can actually kind of make a twist on the Forza edition itself and then turn it into something that's capable for something completely different.
Speaking of different, Forza Horizon 6's Forza Edition S-Cargo is about as different as you can get, turning Nissan's quirky 70-odd horsepower snail-shaped mini cargo van from 1989 into an insane rear-engine Banshee full of custom engineering and a new central driving position.
The S-Cargo started off as a joke from one of our vehicle artists, because when they were working it up for Forza Horizon 5, they noticed that the dials were in the middle of the car, and they were like, you sit on the right. Like, why don't they sit in the middle? Then the dials actually make sense. And then I guess they just span up the idea of this crazy like time attack space frame escargot just from like a simple joke. But the amount of detail that's kind of gone into that build, from what you brought up of just kind of like they made this bespoke space frame, but it's got a front-mounted turbo. Okay, so we need to raise up the space frame so like the actual the exhaust work to the front turbo like makes sense. Like, yeah, that thing's absolutely nuts. I can't wait to show that one off personally. Yeah.
And the details on that as well, the consideration that goes into it. Okay, we have this huge rear wing, it's mounted to the space frame. Okay, well, of course, we've got to go and model these cutouts in the plexiglass rear window so that the rear door can open without interfering with the rear wing. Yeah, I think that probably exemplifies best what our artists can do when they are like fully let off the leash.
And the fact that you can take the front clamshell off and you can see the front wishbones and like the intercooler piping and stuff like that. I'm like, we didn't need to.
Yeah, we've got fully
that's awesome.
Fully modelled like, V6 turbocharged engine in the back.
Yep, it's great.
Rear mounted gearbox that you can kind of see hanging off the rear.
Yeah, you can see the diff, you can see the wishbones. Yeah, it's really
it's
cool.
Amazing.
Like it's the one car that I'm like, if it was a real car.
The third car the team shows us is the Forza Edition Mazda RX-3, which is a little more sedate than the previous two, but that is intentional.
Yeah, I love the RX-3. So we have one of our Forza Editions is like the RX-3. And that's kind of like, we've drawn a lot of inspiration from like car cultures of like the 70s and 80s. And then, yeah, some of the subcultures there, and they were inspired by like touring car racing at the time. So we have like the works, like bubble arches on the car, and we have like the small steering wheel, like the Depper, like front, like chin spoiler, and like front mounted intercooler, and kind of like, you know, the upswept exhaust, like just looks super period. We even have like the big like stock, like banded steelies, like the dish wheels, like it just looks so cool. And it's kind of like a different driving experience from what like the other Forza Editions are. This one's more like grounded. Like it's still like a super like highly strung, naturally aspirated rotary, but it's more about just cruising, making cool noises.
Our studio is incredible because we've got so many people here who are, they love elements of our game which are broader than cars, and they bring a really unique perspective there. But then also it's incredibly important for us that we've got people who are really, really into cars, and within our vehicle team, whether it's our handling team or our art team, we've got people who are really, really, really passionate about cars. And there's so much expertise that you can go and leverage there. So when it comes to, you know, a build like the MX-5, it's not as if you have to really handhold somebody's hand through that process. They kind of instinctively know that, okay, well, if I'm going to go and put a V10 in the bonnet of this thing, it's not just going to fit in that engine bay. And they're poring over and being inspired by builds they see at SEMA and videos of people building these cars at home. So they're kind of acting out, you know, the fantasy that they have of building these cars in the virtual world. And I think that's one of the most exciting things, yeah, the consideration of the details that oh wow, you've added a grab hook to get in and out of that vehicle. Well, yeah, I guess of course you would do that, because it's going to be a challenge to get in over that tubular space frame that you fabricated into that vehicle otherwise. So yeah, I think really it's the knowledge and the expertise, it's just kind of born out of the passion of the team. You know, it's not a thing that has to be, you know, I guess like dictated or kind of instilled. It's sort of thriving, and that's, if it wasn't, we probably wouldn't have arrived at the place that we have with our Forza Editions on this game.
Yeah, I don't think you can instruct passion. I think that's one of those things, right? Like you either have it, you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we have a lot of passion.
Yeah. We want to see people cherishing these cars. We want to see them out driving them. We want to see people photographing them. You know, you can, yeah, just because these things are pre-modified doesn't mean you can't take them into the auto show and change the color, change the wheels, you know, apply liveries to them. So you can still go and make them your own. And we're hoping people have a lot of fun taking the Forza Editions and, you know, uplifting them even further beyond the base car. That's what we want to see. We just want to see people having fun in them.
Of course, in Forza Horizon 6, you won't just be restricted to customizing your cars, you'll also be able to customize the garages you store them in. There are 8 houses in Forza Horizon 6 that players will be able to buy, and each one has a garage. When you pull up to houses, you will load into the garage, so no more painting your cars on the driveway. As you progress through the campaign, you'll unlock the ability to store multiple cars in your garage, one of which will be your current car with full Forza Vista functionality, and the others will be static models. I'm immediately taken by how much they remind me of digital versions of die-cast car dioramas, and the team explains they were inspired by the things players had begun to do with Forza Horizon 5's creator tools, building backdrops to show off their cars in certain ways.
I think the real inspiration goes towards that whole car culture thing of being able to not only build your cars and customize them, but also have somewhere to show them off, as in like you would in real life. And I think that was really what we were trying for when we were looking into like the design for this and how we can make that available to the players, was thinking, okay, we know they have cool cars, they have ways of making the cars look cool. How can we make it so they also have a space, you know, like those diecast, where they can show them in a specific way, play around themes, play around looks, and have that ability to like update that, you know, alongside their vehicles. I think that was the main thing we were trying to think about, was like, all right, if I'm the player, what's the best way to do that? What tools we have available? What could we create for them to, you know, create that space?
Yeah. It's something that we know players do, right? I mean, we talked about this, the kind of journey that we've been on with Horizon 3 and players deciding that certain houses belonged to them, and then in 4 we implemented the houses feature. Horizon 5 we built Event Lab, we built Event Lab Island. And as you said, right, we wanted to deliver on something we know that fans have asked for many times: customizable houses when. So looking to find a way to kind of bring that really powerful, robust tool set that we tested out, that we knew could do all of these things, that we knew players were using to do this insofar as they could, and then actually turning it into a curated building experience with as much freedom as possible, like allowing you to clip things through walls and sink things into the ground, and really be as free as possible with where you place your car. So you can make something that looks like a garage, or you can make something that looks like a superhero lair, if that's your vibe.
Garages function like all other user-created content in Forza Horizon games, and they'll be shareable with the community, have share codes, and be able to be browsed and downloaded.
Yes, I absolutely anticipate that it will be a small number of players who make the wild things that you see in games like this. But then I look at other games that have building mechanics in them, and the creativity it unlocks lifts the community, but it also inspires the community. It's like, oh wow, I can't make the inside of a medieval dungeon with my cars in it or something, but maybe I can mess around with it a little bit. Maybe I can get on that journey to move forward. So yes, it's catering to a specific, very creative group of people, but ultimately I hope that more people will engage with it, more people will try it out. If the only thing they do is like put down an extra locator, fine.
Yeah, I think 1000%, like that's this niche of players that we know and know, like have enjoyed those similar features, or features that in some aspect shared what the garage does in previous games, previous Horizon games. But I think we also have to keep in mind that we've designed these features and implemented them on a whole side of, we know there is like this smaller fraction of players that build, but we also know that there's still this huge chunk of our players that enjoy and consume, right, the fruit of the creativity of those master builders, right? And I think Garage also has that, and that's something we really want to lean on to, is the whole aspect of, sure, I could be a player that loves, you know, the idea of that, but not necessarily has the time to sink into, you know, building my own layout or familiarizing myself with the tool. But due to how the feature is done and how we want it to be, it's going to be fairly easy to, you know, pick up a pretty cool, pretty unique
just a
layout.
couple of button presses,
exactly.
And then you're browsing them.
And it's now yours in a way that you'll be able to pick, you know, what cars you show in there, but that layout would have been made by someone else, so you won't be able to edit it directly, but you'll be able to pick and place your own cars as if it was your own garage, right? You found a contractor that built it for yourself, and then you just had your cool cars shown in there.
While the team explains players will be afforded a lot of freedom in terms of placing objects, with clipping and kludging all permitted for people to achieve the precise look they're after, we won't be able to place vinyls in the space. However, perfect is the enemy of good, and sometimes compromises need to be made to get new functionality like this completed.
I think we've made compromises to the bone on the original ideas that we had. There was a version of it where every house had a different floor plan. There was a version of it where there were windows in it, but kind of talk about these as next tier problems, right? If there's a window outside, What happens when it's nighttime? What happens when it's winter? What happens if a car drives past, right? All of those become really difficult to answer. And we really wanted these features to ship in the game. So we kind of made the decisions. Every time we had to make a scoping decision, it was, can we still keep the core of this, which is, I can make it, for me, it was, can I have my brutalist architectural living room with a 911 parked next to my sofa? Can I still make that? Yes. Okay. We're still good.
Check out our full write-up on Forza Horizon 6's new customization options on IGN, and tune in next week for a first look at Forza Horizon 6's new rush events.